Zak Bagans has spent 20 years locking himself inside the most dangerous locations on Earth and putting what the cameras captured in front of an audience. But the broadcast version of Ghost Adventures was never the complete record. Travel Channel has been sitting on footage that Bagans fought to release and was denied every time, until now. He has made the decision to leak it himself, and what it contains explains exactly why the network spent years making sure you would never see it. Subscribe and stay until the end. The story of Ghost Adventures does not begin with a network deal or a development meeting. It begins with a 20-something Zak Bagans living in Las Vegas with a consumer camcorder, a conviction that the paranormal phenomenon he had personally experienced was real and documentable, and an absolute absence of institutional support for either of those things. The original Ghost Adventures documentary, filmed in 2004 at the Goldfield Hotel in Nevada and the Virginia City Silver Queen Hotel, was not produced within any professional framework. It was produced by a young man who drove to a location, set up a camera, and locked himself inside overnight with no crew, no safety protocol, and no plan beyond documenting whatever the building produced. What the building produced was enough to change the trajectory of his entire life. The raw documentary circulated in the paranormal research community and eventually reached Travel Channel, which recognized in Bagans something the network had been looking for: a presenter whose engagement with the phenomena he investigated was not performed for the camera, but was viscerally, uncomfortably genuine. The series that launched in 2008 took the foundational premise of the documentary and built a production infrastructure around it. Bagans and his core crew, Nick Groff in the early seasons, Aaron Goodwin throughout, Billy Tolley and Jay Wasley in later years, developed a methodology that separated Ghost Adventures from the crowded paranormal television landscape in a specific and important way. The lockdown format, in which the team sealed themselves inside a location overnight with no outside contact, was not a television gimmick. It was a deliberate investigative choice designed to eliminate the possibility of contamination and to expose the crew to extended periods of uninterrupted contact with whatever phenomenon the location produced. What that exposure did to Bagans personally over 2 decades of sustained practice is something the broadcast episodes have documented in fragments without ever fully accounting for. The physical effects are the most visible part of the record, the documented instances of scratches, burns, and physiological responses that occurred during investigations and were captured on camera without conventional medical explanation. The psychological dimension runs deeper and is less visible in the broadcast material, but more significant in terms of understanding why the leaked footage exists. Bagans has spoken in general terms across multiple interviews about the cumulative effect of decades of direct exposure to extreme paranormal phenomenon, about the way that exposure changes a person's relationship to the world they inhabit and to the frameworks by which most people navigate reality. What he has not spoken about publicly, in any interview or on any platform, is the specific content of the footage Travel Channel suppressed, and what that footage added to the toll the investigations had already taken. The empire Bagans built, the museum, the production company, the 20-season franchise, exists in parallel with a private record of what the investigations actually produced that the public has never been permitted to access. The leaked footage is that record becoming public, and the price Bagans paid to accumulate it is the context without which its contents cannot be fully understood. Every frame of Ghost Adventures footage that has ever reached a broadcast audience passed through an editorial process that Zak Bagans did not control. That fact is not unique to Ghost Adventures. It is the standard operational reality of any television production operating within a network framework. What makes it significant in the context of the leaked footage is the specific pattern of what the Travel Channel editorial process consistently removed across 2 decades of production, and what that pattern reveals about the nature of the network's content management policy. The documented instances of editorial friction between Bagans and Travel Channel are scattered across the public record in fragments, references in interviews to moments that were cut, evidence that was excluded, and conclusions the investigation reached that the network declined to present in their full form. None of those public references has been specific enough to constitute a full account of what was being suppressed. Taken together and mapped against the timeline of the show's production history, they form a pattern that is specific enough to be meaningful. The evidence categories that consistently failed to survive the editorial process, regardless of which investigation produced them, share a common characteristic. They are evidence that does not admit of ambiguity. The Ghost Adventures broadcast episodes have always been built around a specific relationship between the investigation and its conclusions. Anomalies are documented, experts are consulted, conventional explanations are considered and found insufficient, and the episode ends in a place of unresolved but compelling compelling mystery. That structure serves the network's interest in a returning audience. A mystery that is definitively solved does not generate a viewer who comes back next week. What the suppressed footage apparently contains is evidence that is definitively not mysterious. Evidence that is clear enough in what it documents that the unresolved mystery structure the show was built on could not accommodate it without collapsing. The contractual framework governing the production gave Travel Channel final authority over every editorial decision, which meant that Bagans' ability to push back against specific cuts was limited to the persuasion he could bring to bear in conversations with network executives who had both the legal authority and the commercial incentive to maintain the editorial status quo. The pattern of those conversations, according to people familiar with the production relationship, was consistent. Bagans would advocate for the inclusion of specific evidence. The network would decline without providing a detailed justification for the decision, and the footage would be removed from the episode without further discussion. That process repeated itself across multiple seasons and multiple investigations until the body of suppressed material had grown large enough and significant enough that Bagans' calculation about the cost of continued compliance shifted. The leaked footage is every instance of that process reaching its endpoint at once. The footage Travel Channel suppressed across the run of Ghost Adventures does not come from a single investigation or a single season. It comes from multiple cases spread across the show's production history, cases that share a specific quality of evidence that triggered the same editorial response each time, despite occurring in different locations, under different conditions, and with different combinations of crew members present. The earliest material in the leaked footage dates to the middle seasons of the show's run, a period in which the production had developed enough operational sophistication to be deploying the full range of investigative technology the show became known for, and in which the locations being investigated had expanded beyond the American properties that dominated the early seasons into international sites with documented histories of anomalous activity that stretch back centuries rather than decades. Several of the international investigations from this period generated footage that never made it to broadcast in any form, not edited down, not reframed as ambiguous evidence, simply removed from the episode entirely and filed in a production archive that the network controlled and Bagans could not access independently. The domestic investigations represented in the leaked material include several locations that did appear in broadcast episodes, cases where the aired version of the episode represents a heavily edited account of an investigation that the raw footage tells a fundamentally different story about. Viewers who watch those broadcast episodes will recognize the locations and the surface-level framing of the investigations. What they will not recognize is the evidence the cameras captured at those locations that the edited version of the episode does not contain, because what the cameras captured goes beyond what the episode presented as its most extreme moment by a margin that cannot be accounted for by normal editorial compression. The locations share no obvious geographic or historical connection that would explain why the phenomenon documented at each of them produced evidence of the same category. They are spread across multiple continents, multiple cultural context, and multiple classes of reported paranormal activity. What they share is what cameras found at each of them, and the consistency of that finding across locations with no surface-level connection to each other is among the most significant elements of the leaked footage considered as a body of evidence rather than as individual clips. The decision Zak Bagans made to release the suppressed footage was not made quickly, and it was not made easily. The people who have been in close proximity to Bagans during the period leading up to the release describe a man who had been moving toward this decision for an extended period of time, working through the professional, legal, and personal implications of breaking with the network that had built his career and deciding, methodically and with full awareness of the consequences, that the cost of continued silence had become greater than the cost of speaking. The specific trigger for the final decision is connected to the most recent body of suppressed footage, material from an investigation conducted within the last several years that Bagans considered the most significant evidence Ghost Adventures had ever produced, and that Travel Channel declined to broadcast in any form without, according to Bagans' account, providing any editorial justification beyond the assertion of their contractual authority to make the call. That response, the network exercising its authority without engaging with the substance of what Bagans was advocating for, was not new. What was new was what the suppressed investigation had produced, and what Bagans understood about the implications of keeping it hidden. The footage from that investigation, which forms the centerpiece of the leaked material, documents a sequence of events that Bagans has described in the limited indirect references he has made to it, as the moment the investigation of paranormal phenomenon stopped being an open question for him, not a moment that that deepened the mystery, a moment that resolved it, and the resolution it produced was not one that Travel Channel was willing to put in front of an audience regardless of how Bagans framed the editorial conversation. The professional relationship between Bagans and Travel Channel had been built on a specific implicit agreement that the network would broadcast the investigation, and Bagans would accept the editorial framework that the network imposed on how that investigation was presented. The suppression of footage that Bagans considered definitive rather than ambiguous broke that agreement from Bagans's perspective in a way the prior pattern of editorial cuts had not. Prior cuts had shaped the presentation of evidence that was genuinely open to interpretation. The suppression of the most recent material was the suppression of evidence that was not. That distinction was the line Bagans had apparently drawn for himself without articulating it as such, and the network's decision to cross it was the decision that made the leak inevitable. The leaked footage opens with material that Ghost Adventures viewers will recognize as consistent with the show's established investigative style: the location establishment, the crew deployment, the baseline readings. What it contains beyond that baseline is what Travel Channel spent years ensuring no audience would see. The earliest sequence in the leaked material comes from an international investigation conducted during the middle period of the show's run at a location whose documented history of paranormal activity predates the modern era by several centuries. The broadcast episode from that investigation presented a compelling but ultimately ambiguous account of anomalous activity. The suppressed footage from the same investigation documents a sequence that occurred in the final hours of the lockdown, after the cameras had been running for an extended period and the crew had moved into the deepest section of the location, in which something became visible on multiple camera feeds simultaneously that no post-production analysis has been able to attribute to any equipment artifact, lighting condition, or environmental factor present at the site. It is visible on 3 independent camera feeds at the same time. It responds to direct address from Bagans in a manner that the footage documents clearly enough that the response is not a matter of interpretation, and it is present in the location for an uninterrupted period of time long enough that its presence cannot be attributed to a momentary instrument anomaly or a transient visual disturbance. The second major sequence in the leaked material comes from a domestic investigation at a location that did not appear in any broadcast episode, a site the production visited and then apparently made a decision not to associate publicly with the show at all. What the cameras captured at that location during a specific 40-minute window of the lockdown is the sequence that people who have seen the full leaked footage have described with the greatest consistency and the greatest difficulty. The physical environment of the location changed during that window in a manner that the footage documents across every camera feed running at the time. A change that is not subtle, not ambiguous, and not attributable to any conventional explanation that the production's technical team has been able to generate in the years since the footage was recorded. The third sequence, the most recent material and the material Bagans has described as the reason he made the decision to release, documents the investigation that finally broke the implicit agreement between the investigator and the network. What it contains is the question the entire 20-year catalog of Ghost Adventures was building toward, answered on camera in a way that no editorial framework could have contained without lying about what the footage shows. Presented individually, each sequence in the leaked footage would represent the most significant paranormal evidence Ghost Adventures ever produced. Presented as a body of evidence accumulated across multiple investigations spanning a significant portion of the show's production history, they demonstrate something that goes beyond any individual case and into the territory of a systematic finding, a conclusion that the investigations were converging toward across years of fieldwork at locations with no surface-level connection to each other. The first analytical question applied to paranormal footage is always the question of authenticity, whether what the cameras appear to show is what was actually present at the location, or whether it is the product of equipment artifact, post-production manipulation, or deliberate staging. The leaked footage has been subjected to independent digital forensics analysis by 2 separate firms whose findings are consistent with each other and unambiguous in their conclusions. The footage has not been altered. The anomalies visible across the multiple camera feeds in each sequence are not post-production composites. The physical evidence of environmental changes documented in the second major sequence is consistent across every recording device running at the time, in a manner that rules out individual equipment malfunction as an explanation. What the cameras show is what was present at the locations when the cameras were rolling. The second analytical question is the question of conventional explanation, whether what the footage documents can be accounted for within the existing frameworks of physics, biology, psychology, or any other established discipline. This is where the leaked material's significance becomes impossible to contain within any conventional analytical framework the relevant disciplines currently possess. The simultaneous multi-feed visibility of the phenomenon documented in the first sequence eliminates the range of perceptual and psychological explanations that are typically applied to single-witness paranormal accounts. You cannot explain away something that 3 independent cameras recorded at the same time by reference to the perceptual state of the observer. The environmental changes documented in the second sequence have been reviewed by a structural engineer and 2 environmental scientists whose independent assessments are consistent in finding no conventional explanation for what the footage shows happening to the physical space of the location during the relevant window. The third sequence, the most recent material, has not been subjected to the same breadth of independent analysis because its contents are of a character that makes the question of conventional explanation beside the point. What it documents does not require scientific analysis to establish that it falls outside the range of anything the existing scientific literature accounts for. It requires only watching, and that, the fact that its implications are visible rather than requiring expert interpretation to access, is the most significant thing about it, and the most direct explanation for why Travel Channel buried it. The surface explanation for why Travel Channel suppressed the Ghost Adventures footage is the one that applies to any network making a content decision about material it considers too extreme for its audience. Liability concerns, advertiser sensitivity, the risk of broadcasting evidence that invites a level of public scrutiny the network is not equipped to manage. That explanation is available and it is not entirely wrong, but it does not account for the totality of the suppression. Networks pull content for commercial reasons all the time, and when they do, the decision is made within a normal operational timeline by people operating within their standard professional roles. The suppression of the Ghost Adventures footage did not follow that pattern. The speed of the decisions, the totality of the removal, not edited, not reframed, gone, and the complete absence of any editorial justification offered to Bagans beyond the assertion of contractual authority all indicate that the people making the suppression decisions were not making them purely on the basis of commercial calculation. They were making them on the basis of something they had been told or shown that made the commercial calculation irrelevant. The history of institutional interest in paranormal phenomenon at the governmental level is now sufficiently documented in the public record that it does not require speculation to invoke. The AAW-SAP program, the AATIP program, and the series of congressional hearings and intelligence community disclosures that have accumulated over the past decade have collectively established that agencies operating at federal level have maintained active research programs focused on anomalous phenomenon for decades. Those programs have a documented interest in managing what enters the public record about phenomena they study. Ghost Adventures, across 20 seasons of investigation at locations spread across multiple continents, has been operating in the same evidential territory those programs have been monitoring. The intersection of those two facts, the institutional interest in managing disclosure and the Ghost Adventures footage documenting evidence of the category those institutions monitor, is the most direct explanation for why the suppression of the leaked material went beyond what commercial television networks typically do with content they find inconvenient. Travel Channel did not make the decision to bury this footage alone, and the entity that helped them make it has a much longer history of burying this kind of evidence than any cable network does. The professional consequences of Zak Bagans releasing the suppressed footage without network authorization are not ambiguous. The contractual framework governing the Ghost Adventures production gives Travel Channel remedies for exactly this kind of unilateral disclosure, and the network's response to the leak will define the future of a franchise that has been one of the most commercially successful productions in paranormal television history. Bagans made this decision knowing all of that. The people close to him during the period leading up to the release described someone who had done the full accounting of what the leak would cost and concluded that the ledger came out the same way regardless of how many times he ran the numbers. What the suppressed footage documents is evidence he considers the public's right to see. The professional cost of releasing it is real and he will bear it. The professional cost of continuing to sit on it, of knowing what the footage contains and choosing institutional compliance over disclosure, had become something he was no longer able to pay. For Ghost Adventures as a franchise, the implications extend beyond the legal and contractual situation Bagans now occupies. 20 seasons of broadcast episodes exist in a context that the leaked footage fundamentally alters. The audience that watched those episodes understood them as the complete account of what the investigations produced. They were not. Every broadcast episode that covered a location represented in the leaked material was a partial account, a version of the investigation from which the most significant evidence had been removed before the audience was permitted to see it. That realization does not diminish what the broadcast episodes contain. It reframes it. The anomalous evidence that made it through the editorial process and onto television was the portion of the record travel channel was willing to show. The leaked footage is the portion they were not. Taken together, they constitute the full record of what Ghost Adventures actually documented across 2 decades of investigation. That full record is now in the world. And for Zak Bagans, the man who built everything around the conviction that the phenomenon was real and the evidence deserved to be seen, the leak is not the end of something. It is the first moment in 20 years that the investigation has been allowed to speak for itself without someone else's hand on the edit. 20 years, hundreds of investigations, an entire franchise built on documenting the truth and then watching the truth get cut before anyone could see it. The leaked footage is not the end of Ghost Adventures. It is the first honest episode it has ever produced. Travel Channel buried the evidence because the evidence was too final. It is not buried anymore. Zak Bagans went looking for proof and spent 2 decades being told the world was not ready. He has decided it is. So has the footage, and so should you. Ghost Adventures has investigated some of the most dangerous and disturbing locations in the world: demon houses, former execution sites, asylums where patients were subjected to treatment so brutal that the buildings themselves seemed to carry the weight of what happened inside them, locations so saturated with violent and traumatic history that crew members have been physically attacked, psychologically broken, and in documented cases hospitalized during the lockdown itself. In more than 20 seasons of television, the Ghost Adventures crew has faced things that most people cannot bring themselves to believe are real. And through every one of those investigations, in every one of those locations, no matter what the building contained or what it produced when the lights went out, Goodwin showed up. He was afraid, genuinely and visibly afraid, in the way that made millions of viewers trust him completely because his fear was never performed and never minimized. And he showed up anyway, every single time, because that was who he was and what he had committed to. That changed during the filming of what sources close to the production have described as the most volatile and most dangerous investigation Ghost Adventures has attempted in recent memory. The location was a private property with a history of violence, occult activity, and documented paranormal phenomena that had driven multiple previous occupants out within weeks of taking possession. Local investigators who had attempted to document the property before the Ghost Adventures crew arrived described something inside the building that went beyond residual haunting or even intelligent haunting in the conventional sense. They described an active and hostile presence that seemed aware of visitors before they arrived, that responded to investigation attempts with escalating aggression, and that had left at least 2 previous investigators requiring psychological support after attempting extended contact. Zak Bagans had been pursuing access to this location for years. When access was finally granted, he moved quickly, assembling the crew and arriving at the property before a full safety evaluation had been completed, before certain protocols that the crew had established over years of operating in dangerous locations had been formally reviewed and confirmed. Aaron raised concerns before the lockdown even began. People with direct knowledge of the production say he expressed serious reservations about the preparation timeline, about the specific tactics Zak was intending to employ once the doors were sealed, and about one element of what Zak had planned that Aaron believed crossed into territory the crew had never entered before and had good reason not to enter. Zak pushed forward regardless, and what unfolded over the following hours inside that property ended a partnership that had survived everything the paranormal world had been able to throw at it across 2 full decades of operating at the extreme edge of what paranormal investigation television is willing to attempt. Ghost Adventures has investigated some of the most dangerous and disturbing locations in the world: demon houses, former execution sites, asylums where patients were subjected to treatment so brutal that the buildings themselves seemed to carry the weight of what happened inside them, locations so saturated with violent and traumatic history that crew members have been physically attacked, psychologically broken, and in documented cases hospitalized during the lockdown itself. In more than 20 seasons of television, the Ghost Adventures crew has faced things that most people cannot bring themselves to believe are real, and through every one of those investigations, in every one of those locations, no matter what the building contained or what it produced when the lights went out, Goodwin showed up. He was afraid, genuinely and visibly afraid, in the way that made millions of viewers trust him completely because his fear was never performed and never minimized, and he showed up anyway, every single time, because that was who he was and what he had committed to. That changed during the filming of what sources close to the production have described as the most volatile and most dangerous investigation Ghost Adventures has attempted in recent memory. The location was a private property with a history of violence, occult activity, and documented paranormal phenomena that had driven multiple previous occupants out within weeks of taking possession. Local investigators who had attempted to document the property before the Ghost Adventures crew arrived described something inside the building that went beyond residual haunting, or even intelligent haunting in the conventional sense. They described an active and hostile presence that seemed aware of visitors before they arrived, that responded to investigation attempts with escalating aggression, and that had left at least 2 previous investigators requiring psychological support after attempting extended contact. Zak Bagans had been pursuing access to this location for years. When access was finally granted, he moved quickly, assembling the crew and arriving at the property before a full safety evaluation had been completed, before certain protocols that the crew had established over years of operating in dangerous locations had been formally reviewed and confirmed. Aaron raised concerns before the lockdown even began. People with direct knowledge of the production say he expressed serious reservations about the preparation timeline, about the specific tactics Zak was intending to employ once the doors were sealed, and about one element of what Zak had planned that Aaron believed crossed into territory the crew had never entered before and had good reason not to enter. Zak pushed forward regardless. And what unfolded over the following hours inside that property ended a partnership that had survived everything the paranormal world had been able to throw at it across 2 full decades of operating at the extreme edge of what paranormal investigation television is willing to attempt. The accounts of what specifically occurred during the investigation that broke Aaron Goodwin's 20-year commitment to Ghost Adventures are careful in their details, and that carefulness is itself one of the most revealing things about the situation. The people with direct knowledge of what happened are not speaking freely or fully, and the ones who are speaking at all are doing so in terms that protect their continued access to the production and their relationships with the people involved, while still communicating clearly that what occurred was genuinely serious in a way that goes beyond the ordinary conflicts and tensions that arise within any long-running television production. What has been established across multiple accounts from people with direct knowledge of the investigation is that at a specific point during the lockdown, Zak Bagans made a decision to pursue a form of engagement with whatever presence was in that location that represented a significant and deliberate escalation beyond anything the crew had agreed to before entering the building. Not an escalation in the sense that Ghost Adventures routinely escalates, through provocation, through extended exposure, through challenging whatever entity might be present to make itself known in ways that produce compelling television. This was different in kind and not merely in degree. Sources who were present or who have direct knowledge of what occurred describe Zak crossing into a category of engagement that the crew had discussed collectively over years of working together, and that had been understood, without necessarily being written into any formal protocol, as a line that would not be crossed regardless of what an investigation produced or how compelling the evidence on the other side of that line might be. Aaron's objection when Zak moved toward that line was immediate. It was not quiet. It was not something that could be absorbed into the momentum of the investigation and addressed during a break or after the lockdown ended. He made his position clear on camera in the moment with a directness that people who have reviewed the footage describe as unlike anything previously captured during a Ghost Adventures lockdown in terms of how unambiguous and how serious the exchange was between these 2 men. Zak did not stop. That is the part that the people close to this situation return to when they describe what happened, because it is the part that explains everything that followed. Aaron drew a line in terms that could not have been misunderstood, and Zak Bagans, who had stood next to Aaron Goodwin in the dark for 20 years, who knew better than almost anyone alive what Aaron's limits actually were and how rarely he reached them, chose to continue. And Aaron Goodwin, who had never in 2 decades of the most extreme paranormal investigation television has ever produced, walked away from a lockdown, walked away. Understanding why Aaron Goodwin's departure carries the weight it does requires understanding not just what happened during the investigation that ended things, but why he stayed as long as he did, in a dynamic that the people who know it best describe as having never been simple or uncomplicated or without its private costs. Ghost Adventures is not, and has never been, simply a group of friends doing work they love in places that frighten them. It is a production built around the creative vision and the dominant personality of Zak Bagans, and operating within that production, particularly as one of its original members with a long personal history with Zak, has always involved absorbing things that did not make the final edit. Nick Groff was the first original member to reach his limit. His departure after season 10 was handled publicly in terms that emphasized creative differences and new directions. But the accounts of people who were close to the situation at the time describe something more fraught and more personal than that framing suggests. Nick has spoken in interviews in the years since his departure in terms that indicate the end of his time on Ghost Adventures was not entirely amicable, and that the circumstances of his exit left marks that took time to work through. Aaron was there for all of it. He watched Nick leave. He remained. He remained through the changes in the show's format and tone that followed Nick's departure. He remained through the evolution of Zak's creative ambitions in directions that placed increasing demands on the people around him and that did not always account for the human cost of those demands on a crew that was being asked to go further into more dangerous territory with each passing season. He remained through investigations that affected him in ways he has spoken about publicly and in ways he has never spoken about publicly, but that the people closest to him are aware of. The reasons Aaron stayed as long as he did are not difficult to identify for the people who know him. His loyalty runs deep to the work, to the show's audience, and to a friendship with Zak Bagans that, for all its complications, was real and had been built over a period of time and through a set of shared experiences that very few people on Earth can claim to have had alongside someone else. Aaron is also not a person who makes permanent decisions lightly. He is not someone who exits things because a situation is difficult or uncomfortable or personally costly, because if those were his thresholds, he would have left Ghost Adventures long before this investigation. He stayed because he believed in what the show was doing, and because he believed until the moment that belief was no longer available to him, that the partnership at the center of it was worth the cost of maintaining it. What Zak Bagans did during that investigation did not just make Aaron angry. It made the belief that had kept him in that building for 20 years, through everything the paranormal world had produced and everything the dynamic with Zak had required of him, impossible to hold on to. And without that belief, there was nothing left to keep him there. The first indication that something serious had fractured within the Ghost Adventures crew did not arrive through an official statement or a prepared announcement. It arrived the way genuinely significant ruptures in long-running public partnerships almost always arrive in the age of social media, through absence, through silence, through the specific and unmistakable texture of what is not being said by people who are normally consistent and visible in their public communication. The people who follow Aaron Goodwin closely enough to have a calibrated sense of his normal patterns of engagement noticed the shift before any information became available through other channels. The references to upcoming Ghost Adventures content that had been a regular feature of his online presence became infrequent and then stopped entirely. His responses to fan questions about the show and about the crew shifted from the kind of enthusiastic engagement that had always characterized his relationship with the Ghost Adventures audience to something evasive and brief in a way that registered differently from ordinary promotional restraint. He stopped appearing in content associated with the production in ways that went beyond what could be explained by scheduling or by the normal rhythms of a show in production. Within the broader production community, information moved faster and with more specificity. People connected to the Ghost Adventures production, crew members, editors, individuals in the paranormal television space who maintain ongoing relationships with the people involved in the show, began describing a situation that was not a temporary disagreement or a contract dispute in the ordinary sense. The language being used in those circles was not the language of a hiatus or a negotiation. It was the language of something that had broken in a way that the people closest to it did not expect to see repaired through the normal mechanisms of professional reconciliation and mutual interest. When Aaron addressed the situation publicly, even in the partial and guarded terms that he has so far used, the response from the Ghost Adventures audience was immediate and significant and consistent in what it communicated about how the fanbase understands the show's identity. The comments, the messages, the volume and the character of the reaction from people who have followed Ghost Adventures across 20 seasons made clear that the audience understands something that the production is going to have to reckon with directly. Aaron Goodwin is not a replaceable element of Ghost Adventures. He is not a cast member who fills a functional role that can be redistributed or substituted without fundamentally altering what the show is. He is the person who has been its emotional center since the beginning, and the response to the news of his departure demonstrated that the audience knows the difference between Ghost Adventures with Aaron Goodwin and whatever comes after him, and does not consider those two things to be the same show. What Zak Bagans did during that investigation did not happen without precedent or without warning signs that the people closest to the production had been watching accumulate for some time. Understanding the incident fully requires stepping back from the specific moment and looking at a pattern in Zak's behavior as both a producer and an investigator that has been developing across the show's run, and that has been visible to anyone paying close attention to how Ghost Adventures has changed over its 20-plus seasons on television. Zak Bagans is, by any honest assessment, one of the most driven and most creatively ambitious personalities that paranormal television has produced. That drive is the reason Ghost Adventures exists in the form it does. It is the reason the show has lasted as long as it has, reached the audience it has reached, and produced some of the most genuinely compelling paranormal investigation footage that has ever been captured on camera. Nobody who is honest about what Ghost Adventures is and what it has contributed to paranormal television can separate those contributions from the engine of Zak's ambition and his relentless pursuit of evidence that pushes past what other productions are willing to attempt. But that same drive has a cost, and the people who have been positioned closest to it have always been the ones paying the largest share of that cost. Former crew members who have spoken about their time on Ghost Adventures, both publicly and in private conversations, describe a consistent picture of a man whose pursuit of the result he is looking for does not always account for what it requires of the people around him. This is not a new observation, and it is not a secret within the paranormal television community. Zak himself has spoken, in interviews and on camera, about the psychological and physical toll that this work has taken on him personally, about experiences during investigations that he believes have left marks on him that have not fully healed. He is not unaware that the work is dangerous. He is not unaware of the cost, but awareness of a cost and consistently measuring it against what you are asking others to pay are two different things. And the gap between those two things is where the incident with Goodwin ultimately lives. The people close to the production describe a Zak Bagans who has become progressively more willing to push past the limits that the crew around him has established, not out of malice, but out of a conviction that the evidence on the other side of those limits is worth the risk of crossing them. That conviction, over time, has produced an investigator who is increasingly difficult to anchor to the boundaries that keep the people working alongside him safe. And during that investigation, it produced a moment that the closest partnership in Ghost Adventures history could not survive. The footage from the investigation has not been released, and the question of whether it will be released, in what form, and with what framing, is one that the production is navigating with considerable care and with an awareness that there is no version of that decision that does not carry significant consequences. But people who have seen the raw material from that night have described its contents in enough detail and with enough consistency across different accounts to build a picture of what the cameras captured during the hours that ended Goodwin's involvement with the show, and what that picture shows is more complicated and more significant than a simple argument between two people who had reached a breaking point. The footage of the investigation itself, prior to the moment of rupture between Aaron and Zak, is described by people who have reviewed it as some of the most active and most genuinely unsettling material Ghost Adventures has produced in recent seasons. The location was producing responses from the crew that were not performed and not constructed for the camera. Environmental anomalies and personal experiences that registered on the faces and in the bodies of people who have spent 20 years in haunted buildings and who know the difference between what a building produces when nothing is happening and what it produces when something is. The footage of the moment itself, the point at which Zak crossed the line Aaron had drawn and Aaron's response to that crossing, is described as something that exists in a different category from anything previously captured during a Ghost Adventures lockdown, not because of the paranormal content in the frame, though that element of the footage is described as significant and strange, but because of what it shows happening between two men who have been in the dark together for 20 years and who, in that moment, are no longer together in any sense that matters. Aaron's reaction on camera at the moment of rupture is described by everyone who has seen it in the same terms. It is not performed. It is not the reaction of someone playing a moment for the audience watching at home. It is the reaction of a person who has arrived at the end of something real, in real time, in a location that is already pushing everyone in it past the edges of what they are comfortable with, and who no longer has the resources to absorb what is being asked of him. Zak's response to Aaron in that moment is described as the other half of a picture that is deeply uncomfortable to watch, not because it reveals something monstrous, but because it reveals something recognizable about what happens to a person when the pursuit of a goal has become more important than the people standing next to them. The production's decision about what to do with that footage is still being made, made, and the difficulty of that decision is inseparable from the fact that the most important thing the footage documents is not paranormal at all. The practical question of what Ghost Adventures is and what it becomes without Aaron Goodwin is one that the production is now confronting in concrete terms, and the answers available to it are not encouraging for anyone who has followed the show across its full run and understands what Aaron's presence has actually meant to it. Ghost Adventures has operated without one of its founding members before. Nick Groff's departure after season 10 was managed through a combination of cast additions and format adjustments that kept the production running and kept its audience largely intact across the seasons that followed. The show continued, it remained compelling television, and the additions to the cast that came after Nick left brought new energy and new perspectives that served the production in genuine ways. But the comparison between Nick Groff's departure and Aaron Goodwin's departure has limits that are important to understand clearly, because treating them as equivalent misses something fundamental about what each of these men represented within the show's identity and within the audience's relationship to it. Nick Groff occupied a specific methodological role within the Ghost Adventures crew. He was the measured and precise investigator, the analytical counterweight to Zak's intensity, and while his contributions to the show were real and his absence was felt, the function he served could be approximated through other means and redistributed among other cast members without permanently altering what Ghost Adventures felt like to the people watching it. Aaron Goodwin's function within Ghost Adventures is not methodological. It is not a role that can be described in terms of what he does during an investigation in any technical sense, because what Aaron does is not primarily technical. What Aaron Goodwin has been for Ghost Adventures across 20 years is its emotional truth. He is the member of the crew through whom the audience has experienced fear honestly, the person whose genuine vulnerability has consistently validated the experiences of viewers who watch this show and find themselves genuinely affected by what it documents. He is the reason that Ghost Adventures has always felt like something real happening to real people rather than a performance staged for cameras in dark buildings. A Ghost Adventures without Aaron Goodwin can continue to investigate haunted locations. It can continue to capture paranormal evidence. It can continue to produce the confrontational and aggressive style of investigation that has defined the show's identity from the beginning, but it cannot replace the thing that Aaron Goodwin brought to it, because that thing was not a skill or a technique or a production function, it was a person, and the person is gone. Rumors exploded online as Ghost Adventures may be canceled. After 25 seasons, after 300 episodes, after 15 years dominating paranormal television, sources claim Travel Channel is pulling the plug, not a hiatus, not a pause, permanent cancellation. Alleged internal statement says what Zak Bagans did can't be forgiven. Reports surfaced 3 weeks ago, claims of serious misconduct, allegations from multiple crew members. Then more stories allegedly emerged, dozens of accounts, patterns spanning years. The network reportedly acting fast, sponsors threatening to pull out according to insiders. Subscribe because if true, these allegations are devastating. There's talk of possible investigations, potential legal consequences. His empire could be crumbling, financial impact catastrophic, and if these claims hold up, his career is over. This is everything we know so far. Stay tuned. According to sources online, Travel Channel may have released an internal statement about Ghost Adventures. Multiple industry insiders are reporting that the network is considering cancellation or has already decided to cancel the show. The alleged statement reportedly addresses serious allegations regarding Zak Bagans' conduct. If true, this would mark the end of one of paranormal television's longest-running and most successful programs. The rumored statement allegedly uses careful legal language but makes the network's position clear. Sources claim it mentions recent allegations that have come to light and states the network can no longer continue the relationship in good conscience. The alleged wording suggests something serious enough that continuing production would create liability or reputation damage for Travel Channel. Industry insiders say this type of mid-season cancellation language is extremely rare and typically reserved for criminal allegations or behavior that creates legal exposure. The timing is reportedly significant. Ghost Adventures was allegedly in the middle of production with several episodes already filmed for the current season. Sources claim these episodes will not air. Mid-season cancellations of this nature almost never happen unless the situation is severe. Networks typically finish contracted seasons even when controversies arise. The fact that Travel Channel allegedly stopped everything immediately suggests urgency and seriousness. Social media exploded with the rumors within minutes. The hashtag Ghost Adventures canceled began trending on Twitter, though no official confirmation exists. Paranormal community forums are filled with speculation. Some fans are demanding answers. Others claim it's fake news or misunderstanding. The lack of official confirmation from Travel Channel or Zak Bagans himself is fueling more speculation. What makes these rumors credible to many is that multiple independent sources are reporting similar information. Industry trade publications are allegedly investigating. Entertainment reporters are said to be reaching out to Travel Channel for comment. The network has not issued any public statement confirming or denying the cancellation rumors. Their silence is notable given how quickly rumors spread. If the cancellation is real, it would mean the end of a show that defined paranormal television for over 15 years. Ghost Adventures premiered in 2008 and became Travel Channel's highest-rated program. The show has aired over 300 episodes across 25 seasons. It made Zak Bagans a household name and launched an entire genre of paranormal investigation shows. The cultural impact has been enormous, but the bigger question everyone is asking is, what allegedly happened? What could Zak Bagans have done that would force the network to cancel their most successful show? The rumors circulating are serious, but nothing has been confirmed, and that uncertainty is driving massive speculation online. Online rumors allege serious misconduct by Zak Bagans during a recent filming. Unverified sources claim an incident occurred 3 weeks ago at a Northern California location involving inappropriate behavior toward a female production assistant. These are unconfirmed allegations that cannot be verified at this time. Speculation suggests a formal complaint may have been filed with union representatives. Anonymous social media accounts claim there could be video or audio evidence, though this is completely unverified. Several accounts claiming to be former crew members have posted similar stories, but their authenticity cannot be confirmed. The alleged pattern reportedly includes inappropriate comments, unwanted physical contact, abuse of power dynamics, and hostile work environments. Additional women have allegedly come forward with similar unverified stories. Some use hashtag #IWorkedWithZak, though most accounts are anonymous and impossible to authenticate. Rumors claim Travel Channel executives may have been aware of previous complaints and allegedly paid settlements to keep incidents quiet. These claims are completely unverified and could be entirely false. No official documentation supports any of these allegations. Industry sources reportedly say if allegations were true, networks would have no choice but to cancel due to legal liability and sponsor pressure. However, nothing has been officially confirmed by any party. Neither Zak Bagans nor Travel Channel has issued public statements addressing these rumors. Zak's social media has gone silent since before the alleged incident. His last post predates the rumors. The lack of denial or clarification fuels speculation, though silence could simply mean legal counsel advised against commenting. Former cast members like Nick Groff and Dakota Layden have not commented publicly. The paranormal community is divided between those refusing to believe without proof and others claiming they always suspected something. Until official statements or verified evidence emerge, everything remains unconfirmed rumor and speculation. No law enforcement has confirmed any investigation. No charges have been filed that we can verify. According to social media posts, some Ghost Adventures cast members may have responded to the rumors. Goodwin allegedly posted to Instagram expressing shock at the allegations and claiming no knowledge of any misconduct. The post reportedly emphasized he focused on investigations and wasn't involved in production decisions. However, we cannot independently verify this post's authenticity or if it has since been deleted. Billy Tolley allegedly posted a Twitter thread distancing himself from the allegations, reportedly stating he was an equipment technician and had no involvement in behind-the-scenes production matters. Again, this cannot be confirmed as authentic. Jay Wasley has reportedly remained silent according to online speculation. Some sources claim his lawyer may have advised him not to comment, though this is purely speculation. Nick Groff, who left Ghost Adventures years ago, allegedly posted that this explains why he left, and that he tried to warn people. These alleged statements are circulating on social media, but cannot be verified as coming from his official accounts. Dakota Layden and Chelsea Layden reportedly commented that the allegations explain everything about why Destination Fear was allegedly canceled. These claims are unverified. Anonymous social media accounts claiming to be production crew members have been posting stories using handles like at Ghost Adventures Crew Truths. These accounts claim everyone knew, and people were afraid to speak. However, there is no way to verify these accounts are actually from crew members. They could be completely fabricated. Multiple location owners are allegedly coming forward claiming Zak made their staff uncomfortable and that complaints to production were ignored. These claims circulate on paranormal forums, but lack verification. Travel Channel staff members have allegedly spoken anonymously to entertainment blogs, claiming they reported issues to executives who chose to protect the show. No credible news organization has confirmed these anonymous claims. Major sponsors have not made any public statements. Rumors suggest some may be threatening to pull advertising, but no company has confirmed this. All of these alleged reactions are based on unverified social media posts, anonymous accounts, and speculation. Without official confirmation, they should be treated as rumors only. Unverified online rumors suggest a criminal investigation may have been opened, though no law enforcement agency has officially confirmed this. Speculation claims a formal police report may have been filed in Northern California, but we cannot verify this through any official channels. Anonymous sources allegedly claim a detective has been assigned to investigate the allegations. These sources suggest interviews with potential witnesses may be occurring, though none of this can be confirmed. No police department has issued any statement regarding Zak Bagans or Ghost Adventures. Online speculation discusses what charges could theoretically be filed if allegations were proven true. Legal experts quoted in forums mention possibilities like assault, harassment, or workplace violations, but this is purely hypothetical discussion. No charges have been filed that we can verify through any court system. Rumors suggest the district attorney's office may be reviewing evidence, but no official confirmation exists. Claims that multiple women are cooperating with investigators are circulating but completely unverified. No prosecutor has made any public statement. Some speculation mentions potential federal involvement if alleged incidents occurred across state lines, which could trigger federal jurisdiction. This is legal theory being discussed online, not confirmed reality. Civil lawsuits are rumored to be in preparation. Anonymous posts claim women are consulting lawyers about potential harassment and hostile workplace claims. No lawsuits have been filed in any court system that we can verify through public records. Travel Channel's potential legal liability is being discussed extensively online. Legal analysts on YouTube speculate the network could face lawsuits for allegedly knowing about problems and failing to act. These are theoretical discussions, not actual filed cases. Zak Bagans has allegedly retained a criminal defense attorney, according to gossip sites, though we cannot confirm this. His legal team has not issued any public statements that we can verify. The complete absence of any official confirmation from law enforcement, prosecutors, or court systems means everything discussed remains pure speculation. No investigation has been confirmed. No charges exist. No lawsuits have been filed in any verifiable way. If the cancellation rumors are true, the financial impact on Zak Bagans could be catastrophic. Online speculation suggests Ghost Adventures was his primary income source, reportedly earning him millions per season as host and executive producer. These figures are estimates based on industry standards, not confirmed salary information. Rumors claim streaming platforms may be considering removing Ghost Adventures content, though no platform has made any official announcement. Speculation suggests international broadcast deals could be canceled, but no broadcaster has confirmed this. DVD sales allegedly halted according to online forums, but retailers have not issued statements. The Haunted Museum in Las Vegas reportedly continues operating normally despite the rumors. Some social media posts claim ticket sales are dropping, but no official attendance figures have been released. Speculation about the museum closing is circulating, though no announcement has been made. Sponsors and endorsement deals are allegedly under review according to gossip sites. No company has publicly terminated any relationship with Zak or Ghost Adventures. The financial impact remains purely speculative. Legal fees are rumored to be mounting if Zak has retained attorneys, though we cannot confirm he has hired legal representation. Potential settlement costs are being discussed online in hypothetical terms, but no lawsuits have been filed that we can verify. Real estate holdings including Zak's mansion and museum property are allegedly worth millions, though exact valuations are not public. Speculation suggests he may need to liquidate assets, but this is purely rumor without any evidence. Industry analysts on YouTube estimate his net worth at approximately $30 million based on public information, but actual financial status is private. Speculation about bankruptcy is circulating online, though no financial filings exist. The rumored financial collapse from losing Ghost Adventures' income, potential legal costs, and damaged reputation could be devastating if true. However, without confirmed cancellation or legal cases, all financial impact remains theoretical speculation. Until official announcements are made by networks, sponsors, or streaming platforms, The financial consequences remain completely unverified rumors. If the allegations circulating online are true, many in the paranormal community are discussing why such behavior would be considered unforgivable. This is speculation about hypothetical consequences, not confirmed facts. Online discussions focus on the alleged nature of systematic misconduct over years. Commenters argue that if someone deliberately abused power and harmed multiple people, redemption becomes impossible. These are opinions being expressed online, not confirmed circumstances. The rumored pattern involving dozens of alleged victims, if proven true, would represent serial predatory behavior according to legal experts commenting on social media. However, no pattern has been established by any official investigation. Speculation suggests that if cover-ups occurred with NDAs and settlements, this would demonstrate premeditation rather than mistakes. These are theoretical scenarios based on rumors, not verified facts. The alleged betrayal of fans is being discussed extensively. If Zak built a brand on investigating evil while allegedly engaging in misconduct himself, commenters say the hypocrisy would be unforgivable. This is opinion based on unproven allegations. Comparisons to other disgraced public figures like Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby are being made in online forums. People speculate that if allegations were proven true, Zak would join that category of permanently canceled figures. These are hypothetical comparisons, not established parallels. The Me Too movement context is cited frequently. Commenters note that powerful men facing consequences for alleged misconduct represents cultural progress. However, no misconduct has been proven in this case. Online consensus in comment sections suggests that certain alleged behaviors cross lines that make forgiveness impossible regardless of apologies. But this is public opinion about hypothetical scenarios, not reactions to confirmed events. Legal experts on YouTube explain that if criminal charges were filed and convictions obtained, career recovery would be impossible. This is theoretical legal analysis, not description of actual charges. All discussions of unforgivable behavior are based on unproven allegations and speculation. Without confirmed facts, these are hypothetical ethical debates, not judgments on actual actions. If Ghost Adventures is truly canceled, speculation suggests all episodes could be pulled from streaming platforms. However, no platform including Hulu, Discovery Plus, or Max has made any official announcement about removing content. Online rumors claim reruns may be canceled from cable television, but Travel Channel has not confirmed any programming changes. The fate of 300-plus episodes spanning 25 seasons remains uncertain. Some online discussions debate whether the show should be completely erased or archived for historical purposes. These are theoretical discussions with no official decisions made by any network. Rumors suggest filmed episodes for the current season will never air. Though production status has not been officially confirmed or denied, speculation claims DVD box sets may be discontinued, but retailers have not announced any changes to availability. Fan collections of memorabilia are allegedly losing value according to collector forums, though this is subjective speculation. Some social media posts show people claiming they're discarding Ghost Adventures merchandise. But these isolated incidents don't represent any broader trend. The cultural impact of potentially losing a show that defined paranormal television for 15 years is being discussed extensively online. Ghost Adventures influenced an entire generation of paranormal investigators and spawned numerous imitators. If cancellation is real, the void in paranormal programming would be significant. Other paranormal shows could allegedly benefit from Ghost Adventures removal. Dakota and Chelsea Layden's YouTube projects, Nick Groff's independent work, and other investigators might gain the audience. However, this is pure speculation about hypothetical market shifts. Travel Channel would need to rebuild its paranormal programming if their flagship show is truly gone. Rumors suggest new shows are in development, but the network has announced no programming changes. Location owners featured on Ghost Adventures have not made statements about how association with the show might affect their businesses. Speculation exists, but no verified impact. Until official announcements come from networks or platforms, the show's fate and all discussion about its removal remain unconfirmed rumors and speculation. Zak Bagans' current whereabouts are unknown and subject to intense online speculation. Social media rumors claim he has left Las Vegas and is hiding from media attention, though this cannot be verified. No credible sightings have been confirmed by any news organization. His social media accounts have reportedly gone silent according to fans tracking his activity. His last verified post allegedly occurred before the rumors began circulating. Some speculate this silence indicates guilt, while others suggest lawyers may have advised against posting. Both explanations are pure speculation. Anonymous gossip sites claim Zak is experiencing severe mental distress, but these reports have no verifiable source. Speculation about his emotional state is based entirely on assumptions, not confirmed information from anyone close to him. Rumors suggest he has hired legal representation, though no attorney has publicly confirmed representing him. Anonymous sources claim he is preparing legal defenses, but this is unverified gossip. His financial situation is subject to speculation, with rumors claiming he is liquidating assets. However, no property sales or financial transactions have been confirmed through public records. Claims that his mansion is for sale cannot be verified through real estate listings. The Haunted Museum in Las Vegas continues operating according to its website, suggesting business continues despite rumors. No closure announcements have been made officially. Public appearance prospects are being discussed online. Speculation suggests he cannot show his face anywhere due to the controversy, though no actual confrontations or incidents have been documented. Career prospects are deemed impossible by online commenters who claim no network will work with him. However, no networks have issued statements about future projects or canceling relationships. Friends and family connections are rumored to be severed, with anonymous posts claiming total isolation. These claims cannot be verified and may be completely fabricated. Comparisons to other disgraced public figures are common in online discussions, though Zak's situation differs significantly as nothing has been officially confirmed. His actual current status, location, mental state, and circumstances remain completely unknown. Everything discussed is speculation based on his social media silence and unverified rumors. The alleged cancellation of Ghost Adventures and rumors surrounding Zak Bagans represent a potential turning point for paranormal television, though nothing has been officially confirmed. If the allegations prove true, the impact on workplace safety and industry accountability could be significant. However, at this point, everything remains speculation. For alleged victims mentioned in unverified rumors, the importance of being heard and believed is paramount if their stories are genuine. The Me Too movement has changed how allegations are handled, though due process and verified evidence remain essential before drawing conclusions. The paranormal television industry could face increased scrutiny regarding workplace safety and conduct if these rumors lead to confirmed issues. Networks may implement stricter protocols, though no policy changes have been announced by any network. Travel Channel's alleged decision to prioritize ethics over profits, if true, would set an important precedent. However, without official confirmation of cancellation or the reasons behind it, this remains hypothetical. For fans of Ghost Adventures, processing these rumors is difficult. Many loved the show while being troubled by unverified allegations. The separation of art from artist is a personal decision each viewer must make, though currently there's no confirmed wrongdoing to separate from. Legal proceedings, if they materialize, could take years. Criminal investigations require thorough evidence gathering. Civil trials involve lengthy discovery processes. Nothing has been filed or confirmed through any court system at this time. The legacy of Ghost Adventures remains in question. The show influenced paranormal television significantly over 15 years. Whether that legacy becomes tainted depends entirely on whether current rumors are substantiated with verified evidence. Other paranormal investigators may benefit from any potential void in programming, though this is purely speculative market analysis. What actually comes next depends entirely on facts we don't yet have. Will official statements be released? Will investigations be confirmed? Will legal action be filed? Currently, none of these questions have answers. The only certainty is that rumors have spread widely and rapidly. Whether they're based on truth or fabrication remains unknown. Until verified information emerges from credible sources, official statements are made, or legal filings become public record, everything discussed remains unconfirmed speculation requiring skeptical evaluation.
Just minutes ago, information leaked from inside the production of Ghost Adventures confirms that a crew member was hospitalized following a terrifying incident that occurred during an uncut lockdown. Footage the network has refused to air. According to early reports, the event forced Zak Bagans to halt filming, shut down the location, and remove multiple staff from the scene. What happened inside that building was not a typical EMF spike or disembodied voice. Crew describe it as the most direct physical event ever caught off camera. Subscribe now, because what unfolded in that dark hallway has left even longtime investigators shaken. The investigation was never meant to take place inside the east wing of the abandoned facility. Even in the planning stages, producers flagged that section of the building as structurally unsafe, and local historians warned that the wing's reputation for violent encounters was far more severe than anything previously documented by Ghost Adventures. Staff who scouted the location in daylight reported an oppressive silence inside the corridor, a stagnant stillness that felt unnatural even for a dead building. But when Zak Bagans reviewed the preliminary walkthrough footage, he insisted the team conduct a full lockdown there, without cutting, without leaving, and without external crew interference. What he didn't know was that the decision would set the stage for one of the most dangerous nights in the show's history. According to town records, the East Wing had once served as an isolation ward where patients were kept without visitors, windows, or sunlight. Former employees admitted that staff refused to work alone in the wing after sunset, and multiple reports described a presence that followed people out into the main hallway. One former nurse said she quit her job after hearing footsteps behind her during rounds, only to turn and find the hallway empty every single time. Decades later, when urban explorers entered the same corridor, several claimed to hear low breathing in their ear before sprinting out in panic. Locals insisted the wing wasn't haunted, it was predatory. When the Ghost Adventures crew arrived, the building reacted instantly. Their equipment carts rolled on their own despite the floor being level. Battery drains hit before the team even crossed the threshold. The digital thermometer dropped 10 degrees the moment the East Wing door opened, and a deep, metallic hum vibrated through the walls as if something inside recognized they had returned. Goodwin reported nausea immediately. Jay felt a sudden pressure behind his eyes. Even Zak, who rarely comments on pre-lockdown sensations, stated plainly, "I don't like the energy in this hall. It feels aware." Still, the plan proceeded. Cameras were mounted, audio recorders tested, emergency lights were shut off. This would be the last time the crew stood in that hallway with the comfort of preparation. Because once the lockdown began, the building made it clear they were not alone. The moment the lights were killed and the doors sealed, the energy inside the East Wing shifted from uneasy to suffocating. Full lockdown procedures meant no stepping outside, no resetting equipment, and no stopping the cameras. It also meant the crew had only their handhelds, body-mounted audio, and the ambient darkness surrounding them. Almost instantly, the familiar static of baseline EMF began to spike, not in short bursts, but in a rising, steady climb that suggested a continuous electrical presence drifting just above human height. Zak whispered that he felt something pacing behind us, though no footsteps were caught on audio. It wasn't until later that they realized the audio recorder had been recording, but not playing back anything from the hallway at all. As the team advanced deeper into the wing, the first wave of physical symptoms struck. The camera operator at the rear reported dizziness and sudden temperature drops at his back, as if something cold were inches away from touching him. Aaron's left arm went numb for several seconds. Jay described the sensation of static crawling up his spine, like fingers moving deliberately. Normally, these early sensations would be shrugged off as atmospheric pressure or adrenaline, but this time they came with an unnerving detail. Each time a crew member reported discomfort, the EMF meter aligned with their exact physical location, as if the energy field were choosing who to approach next. Around the 7-minute mark, the building's acoustics began behaving unpredictably. The hallway swallowed their voices, absorbing sound into a thick, muffled distortion. When Zak called out for a sign, the words didn't echo. They simply vanished into the dark. The team's wireless microphones started glitching, introducing strange harmonic tones underneath normal speech. Reviewers later noted these tones matched the frequency of breathing, long, slow inhalations that didn't belong to anyone in the room. Then came the first major equipment failure. The main camera's infrared mode flickered violently between visible and thermal, cycling through modes on its own. Aaron swore something brushed past his jacket, and he spun around with his light, revealing nothing but the peeling paint on the walls. At the same moment, Jay captured a brief thermal signature on his handheld unit, a human-shaped mass that appeared for less than half a second before disappearing disappearing entirely. When framed slowed, the figure seemed to be bending toward the injured camera operator. Zak's tone shifted immediately. He no longer spoke like an investigator searching for proof. He spoke like someone who understood the environment had turned hostile. "Stay together. Don't break formation," he ordered, his voice tight, controlled, and unsettlingly calm. The team tightened into a formation rarely used, except in situations involving known aggressive entities, but they couldn't have predicted what the building had planned next, because just moments later, they would enter the narrow hallway that had already driven multiple visitors out in fear. And this time, one of their own wouldn't leave on their feet. The deeper they moved into the East Wing, the more the atmosphere thickened, as if the building itself was narrowing around them. The hallway ahead was infamous among former staff, a long, windowless stretch known for producing violent outbursts in patients and panic attacks in anyone who entered alone. Even Zak, who had researched the location extensively, admitted that the wing's central corridor carried a history darker than the rest of the building combined. But none of them expected the environment to shift so abruptly the moment their boots crossed its threshold. The temperature dropped nearly 15 degrees in under 3 seconds, triggering simultaneous alarms on multiple handheld sensors. Aaron gasped, clutching his chest, saying he felt like someone was standing directly behind him, leaning in. The camera operator, who would later collapse, reported hearing a single whispered word, something he couldn't understand, but described as uncomfortably close to my ear. Audio recorders captured nothing but a faint tonal distortion at the exact timestamp, a warping sound that grew louder each time the clip was replayed. The entire hallway seemed to absorb their lights. Even with high-output IR on, visibility collapsed by half. Shadows stretched unnaturally long along the wall, bending at angles inconsistent with any known light behavior. Jay aimed his thermal camera ahead, and for a split second, a cold mass appeared halfway down the corridor, motionless, humanoid in silhouette. By the time he blinked, it was gone. When he rewound the footage, the clip refused to play. The timestamp froze. The data corrupted for that single second. Then came the first major interference event. Every wireless mic cut simultaneously, producing a loud pop through the headsets, followed by a shrill, low-frequency hum. The hum vibrated through their ribs, tightening their breathing. Zak called out, but his voice did not transmit. Instead, the system recorded his words only as static, except for one anomaly. Just beneath the static, a second voice appeared, lower, almost growling, mirroring the cadence of his speech with a half-second delay. The pressure in the hallway intensified. The air felt denser, heavier, as if something unseen filled the space around them. The crew described the moment as a shift from presence to pursuit. The EMF meter in Aaron's hand shot from baseline 0.1 to a sustained 8.7, a reading typically associated with direct proximity to an entity displaying intentional movement. The camera operator began breathing harder, stating he felt compression around his head, like invisible hands pushing inward. Then the final warning sign hit. A sudden metallic slam echoed from the far end of the corridor. Not a door, not debris, something forceful, deliberate. The sound was so loud that it shook dust from the ceiling. Zak immediately raised his flashlight, scanning the length of the hall, but nothing moved. There was no wind, no structural shift, nothing that should have caused it. And yet, every member of the crew felt the same thing. Whatever made that noise wasn't trying to hide anymore. It was coming toward them. Seconds later, a crew member would collapse, and the lockdown would turn into an emergency. What happened next unfolded so quickly and so violently that no camera caught the full event. The crew had just begun repositioning themselves after the metallic slam when every piece of equipment in the hallway surged at once. IR lights dimmed to black. Wireless audio cut. The handheld EMF meters froze mid-reading. For nearly 2 full seconds, the entire lockdown went silent, as if the building had swallowed all sound. When the feeds returned, the chaos had already begun. A sharp, guttural impact came from behind the camera operator. the same one who had reported ear pressure minutes earlier. Jay's thermal cam jolted toward the noise, capturing only a distorted blur rushing across the frame, a ripple of cold so intense it blew out the color scale. A split second later, the operator screamed, his voice cracking into pure panic before cutting off abruptly. His camera hit the ground, spinning wildly as the hallway erupted into confusion. Zak shouted for emergency lights, but they flickered uselessly, illuminating only fragments of movement. Aaron yelled that something had rushed straight through the crew member, not into him, through him. When the lights finally stabilized, the operator was on the ground, flat on his back, limbs rigid, eyes open but unfocused. His breath was shallow, and a low wheeze escaped from his throat, as if his lungs were fighting invisible weight. The most unsettling detail was the temperature around his body. A handheld thermometer placed near his chest read 39 degrees Fahrenheit, a near impossible drop for a human body in such a short span of time. Every attempt to lift him caused new equipment malfunctions, radios cutting out, cameras glitching, and battery packs draining instantly. What little audio survived the moment captured one chilling sound just before the collapse. A whisper layered beneath the static, repeating a single phrase: "Stay." It was the last thing recorded before the lockdown was officially broken. The moment the lockdown broke, the crew dragged the fallen camera operator into the nearest lit room, but the symptoms they observed made no medical sense. His breathing was shallow and irregular, almost as if he were inhaling against resistance. His skin was ice cold to the touch, not just chilled by the environment, but cold in a way that suggested his body temperature had dropped internally. When Aaron removed his glove to check for a pulse, he recoiled instantly, saying the operator's chest felt like a freezer door. Paramedics were called to the scene, but while they rushed to prepare transport, the building itself reacted again. The EMF spikes began pulsing in rhythmic waves, rising each time the medic touched the victim. Portable monitors malfunctioned the moment they approached him. One medic's radio died the instant it made contact with the stretcher. Another reported a crushing pressure in her ears, forcing her to step outside. None of them could explain why his fingertips were turning gray, or why his breath created visible condensation in a hallway that had returned to normal temperature. When the operator finally regained partial consciousness, he wasn't able to speak. His mouth moved, but no sound came out, only a harsh, airless rasp. His eyes darted toward the dark hallway, wide with panic, as though something still stood just beyond the threshold. Then, in a moment that startled even Zak, the EMF meter lying next to him lit up on its own, jumping to a sustained 9.3 before dropping back to 0 as he squeezed his eyes shut. Every attempt to move him closer to the corridor resulted in new equipment failures. Paramedics refused to re-enter that section of the building. The stretcher was rerouted out a different door entirely, but the most disturbing moment came in the ambulance. According to the medic's confidential note, he flinched violently each time we drove past a shadow, as if something was following us. Whatever happened in that hallway wasn't finished with him yet. Back at the command station, producers immediately pulled the raw feeds from every camera in the East Wing, desperate to understand what had taken the operator down. But as they scrubbed through the recordings, they discovered something far more troubling than a simple equipment failure. The footage surrounding the incident behaved like it had been tampered with from the inside. Files that should have run continuously were punctured by stretches of corrupted data, black frames, and visual tearing that didn't match any known hardware malfunction. One camera, positioned at the far end of the hallway, caught the clearest fragment. For less than half a second, a figure appeared behind the injured operator, not solid, not fully human, but a distorted mass bending unnaturally forward as if leaning into him. Its outline bulged and contracted like heat mirage, yet the thermal signature registered as colder than the surrounding air by nearly 30 degrees. Analysts later confirmed the figure's distortion matched the same temperature drop recorded on the operator's chest. Even more disturbing was the audio beneath the visual corruption. When isolated and enhanced, a layered frequency emerged, a growl-like vibration that shifted into something faintly resembling a voice, raspy, slow, deliberate. The spectral analysis showed the sound hitting frequencies outside normal human capability. 3 words were detected, though only one was unmistakably clear: "I'm here." The network's legal team immediately intervened. They flagged the audio as psychologically destabilizing and recommended it never be aired, not even in a censored form. The clip was moved to a restricted server accessible only to senior producers and Zak himself. Zak's reaction was uncharacteristically subdued. After reviewing the footage alone, he reportedly stepped out of the room and said only, "That thing wasn't showing itself to the camera, it was showing itself to him." From that moment forward, the episode was frozen. No more previews, no promotional cuts, no release date. Because what they captured in that hallway didn't just injure a crew member, it proved that something inside the building was aware of them and responding. Once the severity of the incident became undeniable, Zak made a decision he has made only a handful of times in the history of Ghost Adventure. He ordered a full, immediate shutdown of the lockdown. No more filming, no more EVP sessions, no more thermal sweeps or spirit box attempts. The East Wing was declared off-limits. Even veteran crew members, many with years of exposure to violent hauntings, described the shift in Zak's tone as unlike anything they'd heard before. He wasn't angry, he wasn't shaken. He was worried. Behind the scenes, the remaining crew were ushered into a holding room while paramedics transported the injured operator. Zak arrived moments later, his face pale, visibly tense. According to multiple crew reports, he didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His silence alone communicated the gravity of what they had just encountered. When he finally spoke, his words were simple but chilling. "We almost lost someone tonight. That's not happening again." Producers attempted to continue the investigation in a limited capacity, but Zak refused. He insisted the anomaly inside the East Wing was not a typical residual haunting. He stated that the entity's behavior showed signs of premeditation, targeting, and follow-through, a combination that even seasoned investigators consider exceptionally rare and extremely dangerous. Attempts to retrieve equipment left inside the hallway resulted in new malfunctions. A lighting rig powered off without warning the moment a tech approached the threshold. Another camera drained its battery from 80% to 0% in under 10 seconds. Zak stopped the retrieval altogether, leaving thousands of dollars of gear behind. When the building's owner saw a still frame from the corrupted footage, just a blurred silhouette rising behind the operator, she refused to allow the team back into that wing or to continue any overnight activities on the property. Before exiting the location for the final time, Zak made a statement to the internal crew log. "This place isn't haunted by something trapped. It's haunted by something that chooses when to act." The investigation was officially over, but the consequences of that night were far from finished. Back at headquarters, the atmosphere was unlike anything the Ghost Adventures team had experienced. Instead of the usual energetic debrief, senior staff gathered in a closed-door emergency meeting. Phones were left outside. Footage was locked behind encrypted access. This was not about editing an episode. This was about containing an incident. Medical consultants, producers, and technical engineers sat around the table while a still frame from the corrupted hallway footage flickered on the monitor. A blurred, distorted figure bending toward the fallen operator. Zak entered quietly, noticeably shaken. When asked if the episode should move forward, he didn't hesitate. "We're not airing a lockdown that nearly killed someone." His voice wasn't dramatic. It was firm, decisive. But underneath it, everyone sensed the deeper truth. Airing that clip risked provoking something beyond their control. Medical staff reported the operator's condition as stable but abnormal. He complained of intense cold that wasn't reflected in hospital readings and flinched whenever shadows passed near the bed. When asked if he remembered the moment he collapsed, he simply muttered, "It got inside the room before it got to me." Doctors had no explanation for his symptoms. Then came the technical review. Engineers revealed that several parts of the footage weren't corrupted by equipment failure. They appeared rearranged, overwritten, reshaped by something interacting with the file itself. One technician described it as distortion with intention, a phrase that left the room silent. If the entity was influencing digital systems, airing the footage could expose audiences to the same destabilizing frequencies recorded in the hallway. Legal advisors stepped in next. They warned that broadcasting the audio, especially the whispered phrase captured moments before the collapse, could open the network to liability for psychological harm. They recommended complete suppression of all uncut footage. Finally, Zak spoke again. This wasn't just an attack, it was deliberate. "We pushed too far." His expression made it clear. What happened wasn't paranormal entertainment, it was a breach. The consensus was unanimous. The episode would be shelved indefinitely. The uncut footage would remain locked. The building owner later banned all future investigations on the property, citing entity volatility. As of now, the hospitalized crew member continues to recover, but refuses to return to filming. And insiders believe this lockdown marked a turning point for the entire series. Because this time, the entity didn't just make itself known, it fought back. Something just happened involving Zak Bagans, and it's not another haunted museum stunt or television rumor. Moments ago, shocking news broke, and it's leaving fans of ghost adventures in disbelief. What he admitted in a recent statement has turned years of speculation into something much darker. This story digs into the strange coincidences surrounding his recent behavior, the troubling silence from his crew, and what insiders claim he's finally confessing to. Stay until the end, because the truth about what's happening to Zak is far more disturbing than anyone expected. Subscribe now. You're going to need context for what's coming. It started with a single post. No video, no promotion, just a chilling message dropped on Zak Bagans' official account a little after midnight. "The truth always finds its way through the dark," it read. Within minutes, it was shared thousands of times. Fans who had followed Ghost Adventures for over a decade flooded the comments, some asking if it was a teaser for a new episode, others begging to know if Zak was okay. But the words that followed in a now-deleted story made it clear this wasn't marketing. It was a confession. "I've been holding something back for years," he wrote, "something that should have stayed buried. Now it's forcing its way out." That was the moment everything changed. In the hours after that post, his name dominated social media. Major entertainment pages picked it up, and paranormal forums lit up with panic. Was Zak talking about an old investigation, a personal secret, or worse, something supernatural he had encountered that never made it to air? For the first time in years, Zak's tone didn't sound like a man promoting the paranormal. It sounded like a man haunted by it. Witnesses close to him claim he had been acting strangely for weeks, canceling appearances, shutting down museum tours, and avoiding phone calls. Some said his voice, even in casual interviews, carried a kind of trembling edge, as if he was being watched, or worse, followed by something unseen. The post stayed up for just 22 minutes before disappearing entirely. But by then, screenshots had spread across Reddit, TikTok, and every corner of the ghost hunting community. A few noticed something odd. In the image attached to the post, a shadow lingered behind Zak's shoulder, a distorted shape almost human, yet not. People debated whether it was an illusion, an editing glitch, or something else entirely. Then silent. No follow-up, no denial, no clarification. That's when the whispers started. Former crew members refused to comment. His museum staff claimed technical reasons for the closures, and those who had recently spoken to Zak said he seemed distant, paranoid, almost scared. Whatever was going on, it wasn't just another episode or a viral stunt. Something real was unraveling, and whatever truth he hinted at was finally coming for him. Long before the midnight post sent shockwaves through the paranormal world, Zak Bagans had already cemented himself as the face of modern ghost hunting. Ghost Adventures began in 2008 as a low-budget documentary with shaky cameras and real fear. But what set Zak apart wasn't just the hauntings, it was his conviction. He didn't act like a TV host chasing ratings. He behaved like a man obsessed with the unseen. His voice would tremble as he shouted into the darkness, daring whatever was inside to show itself. Viewers could feel it. That raw energy turned him into a global phenomenon. Within a few short years, he went from filming abandoned prisons to owning one of the most infamous collections of cursed artifacts on Earth, the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas. At its peak, Ghost Adventures pulled millions of viewers per episode. Zak's team, Aaron Goodwin, Billy Tolley, and Jay Wasley, became household names in the paranormal community. Together, they traveled the country, confronting entities that most people only whisper about. But behind the success, there was a cost. Zak's obsession with authenticity blurred the line between performance and possession. He started experimenting with darker locations, hospitals where patients died screaming, homes tied to demonic rituals, and prisons where despair had soaked into the concrete. Crew members have since admitted that filming these episodes wasn't just exhausting, it was dangerous. Equipment would break, voices would whisper through static, and sometimes Zak would refuse to leave even after everyone else packed up, standing alone in total darkness, murmuring to something that wasn't there. The fame amplified his isolation. Fans saw the confident host on screen, but insiders saw the toll. Zak stopped doing meet and greets. He avoided daylight interviews. His once loud personality turned quieter, almost solemn. Some said he'd spend hours walking through the museum alone, staring at objects like the Dybbuk box or the Bela Lugosi mirror, as if they were speaking to him. Even close friends said he'd begun treating the artifacts like people. It wasn't long before rumors spread that something had followed him home, but Zak dismissed it, insisting it was all part of the work. Yet, as Ghost Adventures evolved, so did its darkness. Episodes began feeling less like entertainment and more like confessions. Zak wasn't just documenting hauntings anymore. He was living inside one. The man who once hunted ghosts was now being haunted himself, and whether he realized it or not, the cracks were beginning to show. When the cameras stopped rolling and the lights faded, something inside Ghost Adventures began to shift. The chemistry that once made the team feel like brothers on a mission turned into something colder, more secretive. Fans noticed it first. The laughter between scenes vanished, the energy dulled, and moments of visible tension started creeping into the episodes. Aaron Goodwin, who had always been the heart of the show, began looking uncomfortable, hesitant to follow Zak into certain rooms. Viewers took to forums, pointing out how Aaron's body language had changed. In one viral clip, Zak called out to him from a dark hallway, and instead of replying with his usual nervous humor, Aaron's voice cracked as he whispered, "I don't want to go back in there again." That moment, fans say, marked the beginning of the silence. Within a year, behind-the-scenes updates stopped. Interviews were canceled. Crew members who had been with Zak for over a decade suddenly disappeared from the credits with no explanation. Billy Tolley and Jay Wasley rarely spoke publicly about filming anymore. When they did, their words felt cautious, measured. One interview from 2023 stands out. When asked about Zak's leadership, Jay paused, smiled uncomfortably, and said, "Zak's very passionate about his work. Sometimes that passion takes him to places we can't really follow." Rumors spread that an incident occurred during one of their museum lockdowns, something so disturbing that the network forced them to destroy the footage. A former production assistant anonymously claimed, "There's one night nobody's allowed to talk about. We were told to erase everything, even backups." Others whispered that Zak had started performing private rituals before filming, saying it was to keep the energy focused. But after that night, everything about the crew's dynamic changed. Social media became another red flag. Aaron stopped tagging Zak in posts. Billy unfollowed the museum account entirely. When asked why, he simply replied, "We're all on different paths now." Even loyal fans began to sense something bigger was being covered up, something that wasn't just creative differences or burnout. It felt like a secret pact had been made. Those who knew what happened behind closed doors weren't allowed to speak. and those who didn't were too afraid to ask. In the paranormal world, silence is often louder than any scream, and in the case of Zak Bagans' crew, that silence became deafening. A quiet confirmation that whatever haunted them wasn't just inside the locations, it was inside the people who went looking for it. For years, the Haunted Museum was Zak Bagans' crowning achievement, a Gothic mansion filled with cursed artifacts that blurred the line between history and horror. It wasn't just a tourist attraction, it was Zak's personal obsession, a physical manifestation of everything he had hunted for decades. The building itself, a 1930s mansion near downtown Las Vegas, was rumored to already be haunted before Zak ever set foot inside. Locals used to call it the Vengert House, and even before Zak bought it, neighbors complained of strange lights flickering in the attic, phantom footsteps, and whispers through open windows on windless nights. To Zak, that made it perfect. When the museum opened in 2017, it drew immediate crowds, but it also drew something else. Guests would faint, cameras would shut off. Some visitors reported violent nausea and migraines after viewing specific rooms. One woman claimed she was scratched on her back after touching a chair that supposedly came from a serial killer's home. Zak showcased objects like the Dybbuk box, said to contain a malevolent Jewish spirit, Peggy the doll, who allegedly causes heart attacks in those who disrespect her, and the Bela Lugosi mirror, rumored to show demonic faces to those who stare too long. But the deeper one explored the museum, the more unsettling it became. Every hallway seemed to hold its own curse. Tour guides whispered that certain rooms were locked not for display, but for containment. Even the staff started reporting things they couldn't explain. Security footage captured shadows moving when no one was inside. Alarm systems would trigger in sealed rooms. Visitors left crying, saying they felt something following them out. Zak himself once admitted in an interview that there were rooms even I don't like to walk into anymore. It wasn't bravado, it was dread. After one particularly strange night, he claimed that every electrical circuit in the building blew out simultaneously at 3:03 a.m., followed by the sound of knocking coming from beneath the basement floor. Then came the accidents. A tour guide collapsed while walking guests through the basement, her heart racing uncontrollably. A camera operator reportedly quit mid-shift after claiming he saw Zak's reflection blink independently in a mirror. By 2024, rumors circulated that parts of the museum had been quietly sealed off, including a private research room only Zak could enter. Employees began quitting without notice, saying the energy inside had grown unbearable. It was this very museum that fans began to suspect was at the center of Zak's mysterious midnight confession. Because if what he hinted at was true, if something from within those walls had attached itself to him, then the Haunted Museum wasn't just cursed by its objects, it was cursed by the man who built it, and whatever he awakened inside those rooms might have finally followed him home. By the time Ghost Adventures reached its 15th year, fans thought they'd seen it all: possessions, poltergeists, full-bodied apparitions caught on film. But what they didn't see were the things that happened when the cameras weren't rolling. Crew members began to talk, quietly and off the record, about nights that were never meant to make it to air. It wasn't just eerie noises or malfunctioning gear anymore. It was the feeling that something had learned their patterns, that the darkness they were documenting was starting to anticipate them. One former sound technician described it perfectly. It's like the show became self-aware, like it knew when we were there. Production logs from several episodes revealed unexplained gaps, entire hours of footage missing or corrupted. Equipment would power on by itself, battery packs drained within minutes, and audio recorders picked up whispers saying the crew's names long before they spoke. In one case, an entire SD card melted inside the camera while filming at a Nevada asylum. Zak called it the energy feeding off us. To others, it looked like a warning. There was one incident, though, that stood out, something the network allegedly buried. During a lockdown at the museum, cameras captured what appeared to be Zak collapsing after staring into the Bela Lugosi mirror. The footage was never broadcast. Insiders claim he was unresponsive for nearly 15 minutes, whispering fragments of sentences when he finally came to, "It's not done. It's still here." From that day forward, people close to him said his demeanor changed. He became withdrawn, jumpier, as if every sound was amplified. Another episode filmed at a rural church in Louisiana was quietly shelved, even though it was nearly complete. One crew member said Zak demanded all footage be destroyed after something attached to the van during their drive home. He reportedly ordered the team to cleanse every piece of equipment with holy water before entering the next location. That same crew member quit 2 days later, refusing to give interviews. Then came the emails. Internal messages leaked months later, suggesting the production had implemented new safety protocols. Every shoot began with a spiritual protection briefing, something unheard of in reality television. Zak's tone during these meetings grew darker. He started warning the crew to treat every location like a living thing. He insisted certain places had consciousness, that the entities were no longer waiting to be found. What haunted Zak Bagans wasn't just ghosts anymore. It was the realization that whatever he had been chasing for entertainment had started chasing him back. And as strange accidents multiplied, crew members falling ill, gear breaking, staff quitting mid-season, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The hauntings were no longer confined to the screen. They had followed Ghost Adventures home. After years of chasing the dead, Zak Bagans began to vanish from the living. It started subtly, a missed convention appearance here, a canceled museum event there. Then, by early 2025, fans noticed something impossible to ignore. Zak had completely withdrawn from public life. No new Ghost Adventures teasers, no interviews. Even his once active social media fell silent, save for a few cryptic posts that hinted at exhaustion and regret. One simply read, "You can't film what won't let go." At first, fans chalked it up to burnout. After all, the man had spent nearly 2 decades confronting darkness in abandoned hospitals, prisons, and cursed homes. But the timing felt strange. His team stopped mentioning him altogether. The Travel Channel quietly removed promotional material for upcoming museum specials, and his official website went dark for maintenance, a maintenance that never ended. A source close to the production told a podcast, "Something happened last year, something that scared even him." Rumors began to spiral. Some claimed Zak had been hospitalized after a breakdown. Others insisted he was conducting private cleansing rituals inside the museum. Then came whispers of lost footage, hours of unaired material filmed during a late-night lockdown that the network refused to release. A supposed leak described a ritual gone wrong, an attempt to communicate with whatever spirit haunted one of the museum's sealed rooms. The account claimed Zak collapsed mid-ritual, screaming words in a language no one recognized before blacking out. When he awoke, he allegedly begged the crew to destroy every frame. Days later, production was halted indefinitely. That was the moment everything began to crumble. The museum shut down temporarily, citing structural inspection. In reality, employees said Zak demanded every object be spiritually contained. He refused to sleep inside the mansion, moving instead to an undisclosed property outside Las Vegas. Even from there, witnesses claimed he kept blackout curtains drawn at all hours and slept with lights on. His neighbors described seeing strange visitors, priests, mediums, and one man who claimed to be a psychic archivist, coming and going at odd hours. For the first time, it seemed like Zak Bagans, the fearless ghost hunter, was terrified. The man who once taunted demons now refused to speak their names. A friend later admitted, "He told me he finally understood that some things don't haunt places, they haunt people." That confession spread quietly online. buried beneath speculation and denial. But to those who'd followed Zak's journey from the start, it made perfect sense. His empire wasn't collapsing from fame or fatigue. It was collapsing from within. The silence, the shutdowns, the missing footage, all of it pointed to one horrifying truth. Whatever Zak had been searching for all these years, he had finally found it. And now, it wouldn't let him go. Then came the night that changed everything. Without warning, Zak Bagans resurfaced, pale, exhausted, and visibly shaken, in a late-night live stream that lasted barely 10 minutes before vanishing from every platform. The clip spread fast, but only fragments remain online. In it, Zak sat alone in a dimly lit room, curtains drawn, a single candle flickering beside him. His voice trembled as he spoke. "I built my life around chasing what others ran from, but when you stare into that darkness long enough, it follows you home." For the first time, fans weren't seeing the confident showman who mocked the unseen. They were seeing a man broken by it. He confessed that after one specific museum lockdown in 2022, something had changed. He said an object, though he refused to name it, had chosen him. "It's not just in the museum anymore," he whispered. "It's here, in me." At first, viewers assumed it was performance art, another paranormal promo. But the fear in his eyes said otherwise. His hands trembled, his speech stuttered. Behind him, a faint knocking sound interrupted his words 3 times in perfect rhythm. He froze. Then the stream abruptly cut off. Moments later, his accounts went offline. For days, theories exploded. Some said it was a nervous breakdown. Others swore it was possession. But an alleged insider from his team leaked what Zak had told them hours before going live, that he could hear something whispering his name at night. He believed it was the same voice recorded during the Dybbuk box investigation years earlier. The revelation was chilling. Zak admitted he never fully sealed the box. He had performed a partial closure ritual for television, but left the object open afterward, convinced the world needed to see the danger firsthand. He told friends that decision had cursed him. "I gave it an audience," he allegedly said. "Now it wants the spotlight back." His confession reframed everything: the crew's disappearance, the museum closures, the panic in his final post. It wasn't just guilt, it was fear of something still active, still aware. Those who managed to rewatch the fragment of his live stream noticed something horrifying in the reflection behind him: a tall, blackened silhouette standing perfectly still until the screen went black. Whether it was coincidence, lighting, or something else, no one could say. But one thing was certain: Zak's revelation wasn't about fame, regret, or exhaustion anymore. It was a warning. Whatever haunted Ghost Adventures had finally revealed itself, and it had chosen to speak through him. The moment Zak Bagans' live stream vanished, the paranormal world exploded. Former investigators, skeptics, and fans flooded the internet with theories. Some swore he was possessed. Others said it was a staged breakdown, but those who'd worked with Zak said otherwise. That wasn't acting, one insider claimed. Networks scrambled for answers, yet no one from his team spoke a word. Even the Travel Channel issued a vague statement wishing him peace and recovery, avoiding every real question. Analysts tried to debunk the clip, saying the knocking was edited or the shadow behind him was just lighting. But viewers weren't convinced. "He looked terrified," one fan said, "like something was in the room with him." As rumors of sealed museum chambers and late-night rituals resurfaced, the story twisted darker. Whether it was a hoax or something real, one truth echoed across every forum: Zak Bagans wasn't performing anymore. He was living the horror he used to film.